Hello and welcome to another episode of Rustam Shah Live. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Birdie Jaworski. And uh, Hi, Birdie, how are you?
Hi, I am wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting me to have a wonderful conversation. I'm excited.
Oh, me too, me too. Just for my audience, mostly my audience is India and Pakistan, and some of you may not know her. So let me give you some very brief introduction to my wonderful guest today. We are joined someone whose journey blends teaching, technology, and consciousness in a way few others can claim. In her early teaching days, she was known as Mata Hari for her sharp intuition, and during the early crypto wave, she appeared online under the Twitter handle AtomZom while exploring new digital frontiers. Different chapters, but all pointing to the same pattern. Birdie has always stepped into emerging worlds before they become mainstream. Today, she is recognized for her work in consciousness, remote viewing studies, and for developing trans-dimensional TDM mapping, an evolution of remote viewing that looks at timeline, hidden structures, and non-ordinary intelligence. Her mix of creativity and discipline shows how seriously she approaches this field. Whether you know her from teaching, tech, or consciousness research, one thing is constant: she stays ahead of the curve. So, once again, Birdie, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
All right. Uh, let's start with you had such a layered journey, if you will, teaching, tech, consciousness work, and each chapter feels connected by something deeper in you. So let me take you back for a moment. Before the methods, before the names, before the research, looking back at your childhood and your family, did you see early signs either in yourself or your parents that these intuitive or psi abilities were already there?
When I was young, my dad was an educator, and he first he taught in the high schools, and then he became a high school principal, but he was always extremely interested in personal development. And he got involved for a while with the Silva Mind method, which was kind of an early method of remote viewing that was out there. It was a method by which you could train yourself to have greater intuition. And so my dad actually taught me a bunch of those techniques when I was a little kid. And then I also had UFO experiences at a very young age, which I think also opened me up to this entire possibility. When I was 7 years old, I was with my sister, who was a year younger than myself. And this was over our holiday vacation, Christmas break here in the United States. And we grew up in northeastern um, part of the United States in Massachusetts, and the weather was cold in the winter and there was snow coming out. And my sister and I had both received dolls for Christmas. They were kind of Wild West dolls based on a popular TV show at the time called The Lone Ranger. And so we were playing with our dolls, and the snow was lightly falling outside the window. And the strange light came through the window. It was kind of a bluish, grayish, greenish, purple color, sparkly light. And we dropped our dolls and we turned to look out the window, and we saw this big, huge silver disc, a flying saucer. Now, I did not know what in the world this could be. This was around the year 1971, 1972. And I didn't even know what a UFO was. I just didn't have any comparison in my brain to figure it out. And all of a sudden, our dolls jumped up into the air between us without us touching them and started spinning in opposite directions. And that's the last thing my sister and I remembered. And we've talked about it over the years. And it was just one of those crazy things, but it got me on this path, I believe. So yeah, I definitely grew up knowing that there was more to the universe than just simply being a brain inside of a body.
Yeah, but definitely. I remember once I was visiting your website, you had a book there, and I don't know how old you were at that time, but you mentioned, uh, a gray dude in your bathroom, or your experience had this time. So
Yes.
that this experience was continuing from the very early age till the young age when you were young. Can you tell us what was that like?
Yes. Yes. I have had numerous UFO experiences. I had another huge UFO experiences at a girls' sleepover party when I was 16. We all saw an enormous diamond-shaped UFO. And then everything accelerated once I learned remote viewing. So I learned about remote viewing in 1995 when the US government declassified the Stargate program, which was the military Department of Defense's program in conjunction with Stanford and other researchers, where they were developing a program where they could teach military soldiers to become psychic spies. And when I learned about this, I had to get involved. And so it was after learning the original military method of remote viewing that I started having more and more UFO encounters. And I had a series of encounters that lasted almost 3 years. And it happened literally every single night. I would get up and go to the bathroom, and inside the bathroom, there was a little gray alien just standing there waiting for me. And he would give me a telepathic message, not a linear message, not a message that is easy to understand, but something that I called a thought ball, which is like this huge, condensed, multi-layered, multi-threaded message. And I wrote a book about my early days remote viewing and these, I call it the gray dude experiences. And everyone can download that book for free. It's out of print now. So I put up a PDF of the book for everyone. I published it around 25 years ago. It's called Intentions, the Intergalactic Bathroom Enlightenment Guide. And it's at norivets.com.
Yes, it was fascinating read. I did not know that. I recently actually, when I was going through your material, because I have learned so many things from you, and this is, really an honor to be here with you, because I was for a very long time a very skeptical person. I was open-minded, but I was, leaning towards the skeptical version. But then I came to know, okay, let me try and do this. And I can tell you, some of my early experiences were like, whoa, bang on targets. Would you say that is a beginner's luck? I guess.
I don't believe in beginner's luck. I really don't. I think everyone is incredibly psychic. Everyone has this ability to use their consciousness to explore the universe in any way, shape, or form they like. And I believe people can be incredible at it from the very beginning. In fact, I think everyone's incredible at it. And it's a question of trying to figure out what your subconscious is trying to tell you. So I have a different philosophy than pretty much everyone else in remote viewing. But so I do believe, I think that when people say that they experience beginner's luck, it's because their brain wasn't getting in the way. And so they were able to get this information. But once you start thinking about it, then your brain starts tripping you up and starts giving you more metaphorical data, more symbolic data, because your left brain is getting in there and saying, this isn't real. I can't do this. I'm not talented enough. And so it's not that you were able to do it at the beginning and you're not able to do it. You can do it anytime you like. It's a question of understanding what you're getting, if that makes sense.
Yes. Okay. So for the person who is new, what is a remote viewing after 30 plus years of experience, if you want to explain someone like me, or let's say who?
Yeah, remote viewing is the most fun thing I've ever done in my entire life. I can't even explain how much it's meant to me. And you can use this to answer any question that you have. You can go into our deep, deep history. You can look at things today. You can go far into the future. You can be on planet. You can be off planet. You can look at philosophical questions like, what is the nature of God? Or what is reality? Or do we live in a simulation? These are all things that I've looked at. And what I've discovered for myself is that I was good at the beginning. I had some what I'll call natural talent. And I think it's because of all my UFO experiences and being open to this. So I wasn't so closed-minded and I was able to embrace it. But everything started to really ramp up and become excellent for me when I started to understand how my mind worked. And that took years of development. I spent most of this time, 22 years in silence. I had left the field due to harassment, and I just buckled down. I said, okay, I don't want to interact with the public, so I'm going to figure this out. I want to have a real experience. I don't want to get little bits and pieces of data. I want to truly feel it. I want to feel like I'm there and be able to see it and taste it and touch it and describe it accurately, and to be able to develop a narrative when I'm looking, having an experience or looking at a target, as they say in the rest of the remote viewing field. And so after 30 years, I know my mind so well that when the data comes out, I'm not having to figure out what my mind is trying to tell me most of the time. Sometimes I do. Most of the time, it's very direct data because I've already worked through that relationship between my subconscious and my waking mind.
Was that you used to call nosomatics when you were developing?
Yes, nosomatics was my method of remote viewing after I left the Farsight Institute and started my own company, TransDimensional Systems. And I called my method nosomatics, meaning kind of a mind and body approach. And that's how I looked at it. I believe that our bodies also carry this information. Oh, hey, look, that's me 30 years ago, 25 years ago.
Yeah, that was
so young and cute. But
another one.
Yeah.
Now, what we're going to do first is you're going to have an objective
these?
today.
I do. I spoke at IRVA.
Already prepared. And
Yeah, I think this particular one was where you were giving a lecture
and you're not going to actually do a session right now. We're just going to go through kind of a fake session and explain the
at the
techniques.
same time.
But say
that's right. I was teaching how to scan a body for medical, physical, and spiritual illness, and then how to affect healing. And I still teach. That was a method I developed, 25 years ago. And I still use that now in my practice, although I've developed it a little bit further, and it's extremely effective. In fact, most of my students find it to be even easier than the rest of any kind of transdimensional mapping or remote viewing that they do. There's such a directness there. You get very direct data in the body scans. It's amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So I think when I was looking, I want to, research about you to, prepare some questions. There was a time that you were very successful, almost like 2002. And then all of a sudden you disappear. And I think you mentioned this a couple of times, and for the cost of repetition yourself, can you describe, first of all, I know you told me earlier that you were very good and you were working with Farsight Institute and Courtney Brown, and you had, great success. But what happened later, that somebody actually threatening you, your family, your children?
Yes. It was a gradual process. At TransDimensional Systems, I had about 200 remote viewers who were part of my group. And my second in command was John Vivanco, who is a remote viewing trainer to this day, an amazing person, a great remote viewer, and a wonderful friend. And we're still great friends. He's such a cool guy. And so we were working for a number of clients. We worked for law enforcement, looking for missing persons or perpetrators, things like that. We worked for corporate clients. We worked for a hedge fund, giving them advice on investments. And this was like a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund in New York City. We flew out there and had all these incredible meetings, and it was very successful. But something happened. I had remote viewed the next terror attack on the United States, and this was around 1998, and this was, of course, several years before the 9/11 terror attack in the United States. And what I had ended up drawing was what ended up being the Twin Towers. I drew the Statue of Liberty in the front, which was my subconscious saying it's New York City, right? And even though the Statue of Liberty wasn't directly in front of the Twin Towers, that's how I drew it. And I drew two, I thought they were cartoon bombs, like these two things that had all oval things with these little wings on them flying into, one each of the Twin Towers. And I didn't know what to think of it at the time. I thought, that's interesting. Maybe the Twin Towers are going to get bombed at some point. And then when 9/11 happened, that's kind of when things went crazy on many levels, because we started getting a lot of press attention. We had journalists coming out to take our classes, and some members of the remote viewing community were a little taken aback by this. But I also started getting harassment from this kind of gray area. I think it was government adjacent, government, maybe Department of Defense, maybe DIA, maybe CIA. I don't even know. But they were unmarked white vans that would come and park in front of my house, like multiple vans with blacked out windows. This was also happening with John Vivanco at the time and others in our group. We were being followed everywhere we went. Weird things were happening with the telephones. And this was before everybody had a cell phone, mind you. So, we were still using landlines a lot. Some of us had cell phones, but the phones were clicking. And then the messages started happening. Phone calls where unknown numbers would call up and threaten me at first, threatened to kill me, threatened to rape me, threatened to dismember me. It was very visceral. And then they started threatening my children. And I had young children at home at the time. They're all grown up now, but at the time they were young. And I was terrified. I didn't feel that I could protect them or protect myself. So I completely shut everything down. I shut down TransDimensional Systems, and I essentially disappeared from the public. I changed the name I was using. And instead of going by Prue, I started going by Birdie. I moved from Southern California to rural New Mexico, a tiny town where nobody would know who I was. And I just left the public entirely. I stayed away. I didn't follow what was going on in remote viewing. I thought, you know what? This is just bad news. And I started working on this by myself in my own time. I was spending between 4 and 6 hours every single day, 7 days a week, remote viewing. Every morning and every evening, I would do a session. So 2 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the evening, every single day. I was obsessed. I wanted to figure out my own mind. I thought I could make some huge advance with this, but I didn't think I'd ever go back in the public. I really did not. And I did a lot of other things with my life during that time. I sold Avon door to door. I became a middle school teacher, and I went back to school. I had already been to school before, but I went back to school, got an additional degree, and then went and got my master's in digital forensics, which is, the study, being able to identify computer crime and do a forensic analysis on electronic equipment. And I got heavily involved in the early cryptocurrency community, especially the Dogecoin community. I even had a magazine called Very Much Wow, which was about the Dogecoin community, and which was those years were really crazy, really fun. And all that time, I was remote viewing every single day, and I started to figure out how my brain was working. I noticed it. I thought, well, okay, in this session, I am getting a castle, but there was no castle when I look at the photo. But then I would realize, well, why? Why would I get a castle? And I started deconstructing my sessions. Every single session, I was what I call deconstructing, going through literally every single piece of data and figuring out why my subconscious would come up with that piece of data. And every piece of data was relevant to the target. It was absolutely relevant. I just had to figure out in what way. And the more I did this, the more direct my data became. And my subconscious started to understand what it was that I was truly asking of it. Instead of kind of flailing around in the dark, it started to give me more directed data, more narrative-driven data. And so over that time, I decided I don't want to be deconstructing after the work is done. I want to start doing it while I'm remote viewing. And that's where I came up with mapping, transdimensional mapping. And transdimensional mapping, kind of my formal definition of it is that it's a form of remote viewing in which you deconstruct while you're remote viewing. And it's extremely effective that way. My students are having an incredible experience learning it. And so you're able to figure out what your subconscious is trying to tell you while you're in the session. So that's pretty much what I did.
Okay, so I have then follow-up questions on that.
Yes.
In your experience, what is the hardest part for a remote viewer? Getting the signal or stopping yourself from turning that signal into a story?
Okay. It's neither one of those. I think that the signal just resides inside of us. This is my own personal philosophy. And of course, science has not been able to codify what consciousness is or what remote viewing actually represents. This is still kind of a mystery. There are theories out there. Nobody really knows what's happening, but I don't believe that there's anything remote about it. I don't think we're going anywhere with our minds. I think it's already all up here. And in our entire bodies, I believe we reside in this consciousness field. It's completely non-local. We have instantaneous access to anything. So I don't think signal is even a part of it. I think it's already part of us. And as far as storylining, I believe that literally every piece of data in every single remote viewing or transdimensional mapping session is 100% correct. It's just a question of how you look at that data and how you understand it. See, we as remote viewers, as explorers, is the term I use these days. You can't divorce yourself from the experience, from the target. You can't. You're always going to see it through your own eyes. Just imagine if you went to a concert. Say you went to a Taylor Swift concert and you're a big, huge Taylor Swift fan. And your friend asked you the next day to tell you about the concert. You're going to explain that concert in all of these beautiful, glowing terms. You're going to talk about Taylor, and she played these famous songs of hers, and this celebrity guest came out, and this happened, and it was awesome. Now, say you were somebody who knew nothing about Taylor Swift. You got a free ticket. You show up at the concert, you don't know about her, and you hate the music. It's terrible. You can't stand it. You don't know who she is. You don't know what she's doing. You don't recognize the celebrity guests on stage. When you explain that experience to someone, it's going to look completely different, even though you both had the same experience. And remote viewing is just like that. You can't divorce yourself from the process. Your educational background, your cultural background, your religious or spiritual background, just your upbringing and who you grew up around, and the way that you kind of view the world in general. All of these things come into play because it's not an objective process. It literally can't be. No matter how many levels of blindness you do, single blind, double blind, it doesn't matter. You can't divorce yourself from the process. It's never objective. It's always more about you than it is about the target. And that's what I teach my students. You learn more about yourself than you do about the rest of the universe, but you still learn a heck of a lot about the rest of the universe. So I would say that the biggest, instead of being the signal or storylining, which I don't believe in, I think that even storylines, your subconscious is still trying to tell you something about the experience. I think the biggest issue is when people psych themselves out. They think they can't do it. They or they don't want to get into a deep practice of deconstruction and understanding their mind. So they're kind of stuck doing the same thing over and over. I see a lot of people in the remote viewing community, and believe me, I was one of these people for the first, 5 years that I was in this, where you keep doing one session after another and you think that that means that you're going to get better. But if it's like learning a musical instrument, if you're practicing the same piece of music over and over, but you're getting it wrong every time in the same way, you're never going to improve. You have to have perfect practice, And so it's the same thing with any form of remote viewing or with transdimensional mapping, is you have to really think about what you've just done. And then the next time it's a little bit better. And then the next time it's a little bit better. But those moments in between sessions are even more critical than the moments you spend actually in the process.
Is there a way to know that when we perceive something like an impression, are we getting this impression from the cloud, if you will, or are we accessing our future self and downloading the memories we have in the future? How do you describe the impression? From where are we getting these impressions or information from?
Yeah, I think that the information already resides inside all of us, whether it's information from the deep past or information from another star system or information far into the future. I think that time is an illusion and everything is interconnected. I spent I've done a number of really big projects, and I'm going to be posting a long essay with literally hundreds of my maps, which for somebody in transdimensional mapping, a map is your session data. And it looks like a big map or like a big kind of cool storyboard. And this project was done on alternate timelines, alternate realities, and different dimensions and different universes. It first looked at whether these things even exist. And so if these things do exist, I don't think it would be a future self that is getting this information. I think we're just able to access this information. And it was really fascinating what came up in this study. So I just think we're connected to it all.
Because I heard, I think, if I remember correctly, Paul Smith once said that, or I'm sorry if I forget his name, that some kind of feedback exists somewhere. And because of that feedback, we have this opportunity to remote view, if you will. If there is no feedback, there will be no remote viewing itself. So that was my this confusion, that are we getting something which already existed in the future, and I did this, let's say 10 years in the future, and I'm just accessing my memories, and that's all. There's nothing more than that.
No, I don't think so, because I can look at the very beginning of the universe, and there will be no feedback for that. Unless you can build a time machine, go back and film it, but then how could you film it if the universe didn't exist? So I think there are many cases where you can illustrate where a feedback loop isn't required for this. You can talk across the veil. You can talk to dead people that have moved on and they're having new adventures. You can talk to different realms where different kinds of beings exist that aren't even in our known reality. So I don't think it's a feedback loop. I think we actually are just connected to everything.
Wonderful. I heard that I read somewhere, I don't know if it's accurate or not, but you said that you remote viewed Buddha and past personalities like Hitler. And so how do you do this? Is there somewhere somebody gave it to you? I know you said you have a lot of targets, but are these your own targets? You chose themselves, or somebody else is doing for you?
It's a big mix. I have several pools of experiences, targets, and I have one that's on that it's electronic, and that has over 8,000 different things, and this has come from a wide variety from clients, from friends, from other explorers, or the remote viewers, myself, that I've been collecting for years and years and years and years. I have a huge amount in my shed in my backyard. I've got a big shed, and it's full of these big plastic tubs that people use when they want to move things. Yeah. And they're filled with envelopes, filled. There's thousands upon thousands and these all go back almost 30 years. These are things I've been collecting, things that people have given me to look at. And so 75% of my practice, and I still remote view map twice a day, once around 2 a.m. when I get up, and once late in the afternoon or early evening. And I'll pick something at random, either from the old pile or from my electronic pile. And it's all double blind for the most part, unless someone gives me something specifically and they say that there is a time constraint, that they need this right away, and it's somebody I trust or somebody who has hired me to do this, then I'll do it right then and there. And those are, single blind, so to speak. But I don't even know that single blind or double blind is really that important, because even in double blind sessions, somebody still came up with that target, right? It's still in somebody's consciousness. I don't think there is such a thing as truly double blind. So I think that's kind of I know that in the scientific community, double blind is very important in medical studies and in a lot of other kinds of studies. And in that case, I think double blind actually has an intrinsic meaning. And I think that terminology is kind of carried over to the remote viewing community. But I think we need to start thinking about consciousness in new ways, and maybe coming up with new terminology or new ideas about how actually all of this works.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question, but before I pose this question, I have to show you something.
Okay.
So you see this? This is an actual video from 1906 San Francisco.
Wow.
Very early days, when we have these very primitive cameras and you have to do this manually. The point is that you see these people, and I'm quite sure that all of them are dead now, because this is 1906. It's over 110, 15 years ago. But
yes.
But according to the theory, if I, let's say, go and find a person and I give you this blind target, you don't know anything,
Yes.
but let's say I want you to look a particular person, let's say this person who is standing there.
Yes.
And you will be able to go back in time, and you will be able to do a mind probe. You will be able to see what this person is like or what his thoughts are. And in theory, you can also influence his or her thoughts in the past and change his life completely.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you can read his mind. You can know what he's doing in that moment. You can see everything 360 degrees around him, and you can do a full body scan. You can find out what's going on with his heart or his lungs or his kidneys. You can find out anything you want. And you can, remote, you're talking about remote influencing.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is, when I teach body scans and remote healing in my class, I always explain to students that is a form of remote influencing when you send a message to someone because, humans, I believe we are a telepathic species, although our telepathic abilities are still latent within us. We're just starting to unlock these, except, there's always been the mystics throughout antiquity that have had, an accelerated or, advanced state of telepathic awareness. But most of us, we only know a little, we can only pick up a little bit unless we start really practicing and focusing on it. And so they're not going to know that you're there, like that man in the video, the policeman in the video. He wouldn't know that I am doing this for him, but he might feel it. One of the, when we do the healing techniques, sometimes in my classes, I'll get permission from somebody who's alive, who I know, a friend of mine who maybe has a medical issue. And in one of the recent classes I taught, I have a friend who is going through a medical trauma. She has a disease, and she needed some, and she begged. She said, hey, can your class help me with this? And I said, hey, we'll give it a try. We have consent. And so I told my class, we have somebody. I did not tell them who it was or what the problems, the medical health problems were. And the class all did the body scans, and they sent her this healing energy. And she literally texted me while that was going on. And she said, you're doing it right now because I can feel it. She felt this sense of peace and love and warmth envelop her. And I believe that changed her forever in some ways. And she's had a wonderful recovery since then. So yeah, I think we can do this. And so you have to be a force for good in the world. Can you use this for evil? Probably, but I don't. And I don't recommend that anyone else does either.
Yeah. If we flip that, for example, let's say you were able to influence that person in the past.
Yes.
But let's say somebody is sitting 200 years in the future and watching right now, you and me, and say, wow, this lady is way ahead of her time, but on this particular issue, she is slightly off. So let me influence her thoughts. So my question is, how do we know that our own thoughts are not influenced by someone else in the future, from the future?
Yeah. In some respect, you don't know unless you've really cultivated your mental powers in some way. And I believe that, sometimes when I am doing a session, now say we're looking at a non-human experience, a non-human target, maybe a gray alien or some other kind of intelligence that's non-human. Some of these beings are very telepathic, and you can tell when they're messaging you or trying to influence you in some way. Sometimes they'll try to block you from having the experience, from seeing the target. And in those cases, I teach how to get around blocks, how to get through blocks, how to set up your own blocks. It's all part of what I do. But yeah, you can feel it. And so the more you do this, the more you can feel it. And I think that all of us, whether we're remote viewers or not, we have these experiences during the day. Like, for example, you may be walking down the street and you just get this creepy feeling, and you feel that someone's staring at you, and you turn around, and sure enough, someone is staring at you, right? And that's kind of like that. And or you might think of your sister, and then 10 minutes later, the phone rings, and it's your sister. So we're always connected to things, and all of those things are examples of either telepathy or influence or remote viewing. I think it's all in a continuum, and it's a bit of a slippery slope. So I do think that we all influence each other, and that it's important to go into every remote viewing or transdimensional mapping session that you do, and to have a positive mindset, have love in your heart, approach it like a detective, like you're there to do no harm. And I think you'll be okay. But though I have felt negative thoughts at times on sessions, looking, well, most specifically at government installations and things like that I suspect other remote viewing groups within the government still are monitoring in some way. And, I've felt a little bit of that before, but it's easy to put up a block or to ignore it, just to ignore it. I think the more you are sure of your own thoughts and your own awareness, the less likely any of that stuff is bound to happen, even in regular life. Just other people's attitudes and behaviors start to roll off a little bit better. I mean, we still get affected by other people, but I think that the more that you do this practice, the better you get at dealing with all of that.
Okay, on the question of intent, I think you answered this before, but I just want to have some clarity on it. Let's say I take a picture of blue sky, nothing there, clear blue sky, and then I download this picture on my computer, add a CGI UFO in it, and give it to you as a target. Now, I think if I remember correctly, this was last time somebody asked this question, and you said, well, you will be able to see the UFO, but you may be able to see that this is not the real target, or you may have some vibes that this is maybe fake or something like that. But if so, first of all, do intentions become targets, or will you able to see the reality? Because in this scenario, the UFO doesn't exist. The actual reality was the sunlight and the blue sky. That's all. So
Yes. Yeah,
so
you can. This is how it works for me. So if I look at something, okay, so for example, here in the United States, in Northern California, there is a big mountain, Mount Shasta. It's a famous mountain. It's a beautiful, big, famous mountain. I've never actually been there, but I've seen photos of it. And there has been a lot of mythology that has built up over the years around this mountain. People believe that there is a non-human species that lives inside the mountain called the Lemurians, and thousands upon thousands of people believe this. It's been a huge belief for many decades, and someone gave me that to map, to remote view. So this was just last year, actually, and so I looked at it. I did this blind. I didn't know what I was looking at. And I got the mountain and I described everything that they believed about it. The UFOs coming in and out of the mountain, the aliens in the mountain, all of this. But then I also wrote on my map, I wrote, this is a mythology. This isn't real. This started from some sighting or some small experience that happened a long time ago. And the mythology kind of grew and grew and grew, and more people started to believe it, but it's completely not true. So that's literally what I got on my map. And if you remote view or explore something such as Santa Claus, who is a mythological creature, kind of loosely based on an old saint, then you would get a fat, jolly man in a red hat who's giving out presents, and maybe there's snow on the ground. You would get everything. You would describe Santa Claus, a beloved mythological figure, but you would also get in your session the idea that this is a construct, or this is a myth, or this is a story that we tell to young children. So you always get the reality, even though you may be describing what that kind of mixed up mythology or intention or fake whatever. Now, I have looked at, there are a whole bunch of target pools out on the internet for people, remote viewers, to practice, right? There's a ton of them, mostly for students of CRV, controlled remote viewing, the military style, but for some of the other remote viewing groups. And every now and then I will do one of those just for fun, just to see, well, what are people putting in their target pools? And I did one not that long ago. There was a new app that someone had come up with, and the app was like a target pool app. And one of the targets was, and I don't know how many of these targets were like this, but the one that I happened to choose, and of course I did this blind, I just worked with the numbers, and it was a artificial intelligence, an AI photo, an AI graphic of flowers in a vase. And it was clearly AI when you looked at it. And so while I was mapping this out, I was drawing flowers in the right colors and the vase. But I kept saying, wow, this feels two-dimensional. This feels fake. And it actually made my stomach hurt, which was actually kind of interesting. And I've had a couple other AI targets, experiences that I've also done. And I get that same kind of weird feeling where, it's like that uncanny valley feeling where what you're looking at isn't entirely human or real or even good in some way. It kind of has a negative feel to me.
So it's just like, if I give you an example of Harry Potter's magical wand, if I give it to you, then I also have to specifically ask you to see the wand as exists in the imagination of the writer, or as a movie prop, or as it been used in the movie, or it been sold some shop. So it has to be very specific. My problem with these websites you just mentioned, I also went some of these websites, that
Yes.
they have very generic targets with sometime Wikipedia description attached to it. For example, if you allow me, I had a target of Amelia Earhart, and there was a very simple description attached to it, the journal description of her life. So I ended up, what I think is, getting the impression of her last moment when she was in the water. That's but
Yes.
I saw the other sessions from other viewers, and they were describing the whole other things which are all over the place. So how important is the tasking in this regard when it comes to the intention?
Yeah, tasking is an art in and of itself. It absolutely is. If you're the tasker and you've got a group of remote viewers or explorers in my case, and you want them to get a particular kind of information, then you need to be very specific with what you want them to look at, what you want them to experience. But there's also value in some of these open-ended tasks. There's value in that too. In a recent class, I gave out an entire event without any specific parameters because it was an illustration to this particular, it was an analysis class. And I wanted them to understand that in analysis, you might be looking at a really deep breadth and depth of something. And so sometimes there's value in looking at tasks that are more loose-ended. I just posted a session that I did some time ago on my YouTube channel. The biggest secret in the world was the reveal. That's what it was.
Yeah, I have a question in the end for that.
Yeah, that was double blind, so to speak, from my big pool. I had probably put that one in there, I don't even know how many years ago, and it popped up at some point in the last few years, and I did that. And it's interesting because that's another thing. Biggest secret to who? Maybe one person has a huge secret that the whole world would be super interested in hearing, or maybe it's the biggest secret for humanity. So it was in some respects, a poorly written task. But on the other hand, it's also super interesting because maybe it's like I said before, you can't divorce yourself from the experience. So it might have been the thing I would find the most interesting that's a secret. So yes, tasking is very important, especially in operational work. And that's one thing I have done a tremendous amount of. I'm currently working on a really big law enforcement case and involving murder. And those tasks have to be more precise because you need to provide to your clients something that's usable, something that you can analyze easy, and that they would understand. So you're right. Tasking is extremely important in particular use cases. And in other cases, having open-ended tasks can be a whole lot of fun.
So in this case, if there's an open-ended session, how do you suggest a new remote viewer to perceive the target? Because I saw your sessions, you just say start and then start getting your impressions and write it quickly. But do I have to have a certain mindset before I say, okay, I don't know, it may be an open-ended session or maybe a targeted. Do I have to have some certain intention or anything I should keep in mind before I do this?
Yeah. So, well, for beginner students, I give out very specific experiences. So it's usually in a 5-day beginner class. The first 3 days are all just photographs of things, of geological formations or people doing something interesting or animals or famous photos of different events. And so those are limited because it's a snapshot in time. And so I don't give beginner students anything that's largely open-ended. Maybe on the last day of class, I'll give them something like the most important lesson that they need to learn in this lifetime. Those always bring the house down. Everyone's always crying by the end because there's one thing I can say for sure. When you are mapping or remote viewing yourself, you know it. Like everybody knows it. It's just instant recognition. And those are the most fun things to give. But I always recommend that students do a cool down before they begin the session and that they approach it like a detective and like a little kid. You want to be curious, open. You want to be in a good mood. You shouldn't be stressed out. You shouldn't worry about getting it right or wrong. Like my mantra is, you get what you get. You get what you get. every single thing you're going to get is going to be glorious and beautiful. So you should just go in there and play around, have fun. So I try to instruct students to have a playful quality, do a cool down before. We have my operations manager, Jen Lee, gives an amazing little meditation in class before each session that the students do, where she asks everyone to speak to their subconscious. It's a really cute little meditation. And so you invite your subconscious to play with you and to have this fun time with you. And that seems to be very effective for everyone. They love it. Gets them all less stressed about the process, because a lot of people come in at the beginning and they're worried they can't do it, or maybe they're very skeptical and they don't even know if this stuff is true. And but everyone believes by the end because they've all had an amazing experience.
Yeah, well, thank you. I have a lot of questions, but I don't know how much time we have. Let's switch to some, other. You recently posted 2 sessions. Okay, there are 2 different sessions, multiple videos, but New Jersey drone incursions, and before that, you also remote view 2000 via Tic Tac.
Oh yes.
2004 Tic Tac. And in both cases, these objects were emerging from the water. Now,
Yes.
were these, when you were observing them, were the same entities, or were they different? They were different.
They were different. And I posted a very short excerpt from my Tic Tac session. I did that live in a class. My students gave me that to map out. So it was blind session. They knew what it was. I didn't. And I only posted the first like 7 minutes because
I just saw that. Yes.
I know. Yeah. It's like almost an hour-long session, but I took a lot of it and I decided not to post it online because I got this deeply personal information about some of the Navy personnel that were involved in this incident. And I thought, oh my gosh, I cannot post this online. That's way too personal. And so that didn't make it on there. But the Tic Tac and the New Jersey drones, they both had an underwater component where they were definitely coming in and out of the water. The Tic Tac had a huge underground base there, which of course people have theorized there's a big base off the coast of Southern California where that occurred. But for the New Jersey drones, it was super interesting. They were also going into the water, but it wasn't the same kind of a base. It was almost like a portal of some sort where they were going into another plane of existence, or into, I don't know, another dimension, plane of existence, invisibility mode. It was completely a different sort of thing. And they were both very different kinds of entities. The Tic Tacs felt more, I'll say, traditional non-human, more like an ET spacecraft of some sort originally, but they've been here for a while. But the New Jersey drones, whatever those entities were, that felt more elemental to me, as if it is actually part of our planet, part of who we are, been here a long time. I don't think those are extraterrestrial at all, even though they're non-human.
There could be like artificial intelligence, maybe?
Yeah, I think that there was an artificial intelligence sort of component to them. I was kind of struggling to find the right language in those sessions on the drones because there was an organic component, almost like a plasma component to them, but they were so highly organized that it felt like artificial intelligence. But if it is artificial intelligence, it's so far advanced than what we currently have in use today, at least on the consumer level. Now, I have looked at some of the more secretive AI research going on out there, and oh my gosh, it's way more advanced than you would believe. So the stuff going on in some of the secret labs, and even not so secret labs that they haven't revealed.
Yeah, you also mentioned a couple of times that there are actual bases or installation from where these entities, for the lack of a better word, are operating on our.
Yes.
Can you, because I heard some stories, some other remote viewers like Pat, I don't know what was his name, from SRI. I think his name is Pat something. I forget his name.
Pat Price.
Pat Price, exactly. Yes. he remote viewed, or he was tasked to do something else, but he got a tractor and he viewed something else, and he just went later to see what was. And he's said something of some kind of a base under Mount Hayes, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that's right.
Did you also see these bases? If yes, how many are we talking about?
Yeah, I have kind of recreated all of the Pat Price sessions that have, gotten into the public domain just to see what I would get. And my data is similar in many ways to those sessions that Pat Price did. Although I go off and, my attention was caught by different aspects of it, but you could put sessions together and say, wow, okay, they're at the same place. He's looking at this, she's looking at that, kind of a thing. But there are a number of bases, and there are underwater bases, there are underground bases. I don't even know how many, because there's probably more than I've even explored. There's a huge base in the Mariana Trench, like the deepest portion of our oceans, bases off of California. There's a big base in the kind of Bermuda Triangle area, bases in the Southern Hemisphere. And there's Antarctica, huge base there. There's a number of bases. Our planet has been home to many, many, many non-human species for a very, very, very long time. In fact, some of these species are much old, have been here much longer than humans have, since wherever that point is in our evolution, where you could say, okay, that's the first actual human being, modern human being. Some of these non-human species have been here way longer than we have in terms of that. So I kind of feel that it's their planet too, to be honest. And I think some of these bases are no longer in use. Some of them are definitely in use. That's why you see all kinds of strange activity in different areas. I live in New Mexico, here in the United States, and New Mexico is what they call a hotspot for UFO activity. There are numerous places here where people see things all the time, like seriously all the time. There is one Native American indigenous population. It's a reservation. It's in the northeast part of the state, and every month they always do it around the new moon. They go out on this mesa, this big geological mesa, big flat top mesa. And it's out in the middle of the desert. There's nothing around. And they literally call the ships out of the ground. And I went out with them a couple of times back when I lived up in that area. And you could see these things just kind of rise up from different cracks in the earth, these orbs or even more craft-like looking things. So I think that it's been with us a long time.
They definitely, didn't stop our evolution. They let us grow and, flourish on Earth. And I mean, we think we are the dominant species on Earth, but you are suggesting that there are other species, non-human, what we call NHIs, from other solar systems, among others, here on this planet Earth, and they're interacting with us.
Yes, I think some of them do come from other solar systems, even other galaxies. And some of them, I think, come from just other places, whether that's interdimensional or other realities of some sort. And yeah, they've been here a long time. And, we do consider ourselves the apex species, the big predator on the planet. I mean, just look at what we're doing to the planet, how we're kind of ruining it in so many different ways through garbage and pollution and not taking care of each other, not even feeding and housing each other. I mean, we are a messy species and the most visible on this planet. And these other species, they're not as visible. And I think that that's by design. I think that they're watching to see what we turn into. They also don't want to kind of get involved in a fight or an argument, or, we would lose any war we got into with pretty much any of these species. Our technology is so far behind, even though we certainly, different governments have way advanced technology than what the public is aware of. we still can't beat any of these other beings in a fight. That's for sure.
There is another theory, and I think you probably heard Dr. Michael Masters. He thinks
Yes.
that some, if not all, these machines are actually time machines sent by our own descendants, future descendants, to do research or whatever. And are there chances, or if you have a remote view, any future humans or machines, or I'm pretty sure the artificial intelligence in the future will be almost like godlike to us?
Yes. Yeah. I think that many of these species would appear godlike to us. And I've looked at, like, for example, well, I'll get to this in a second, but just to answer your question, I think that, oh shoot, I lost the train. So I'll just keep talking. But I think that time machines, that's what I'm talking about. So transdimensional mapping, or remote viewing, if you will, that's a form of time travel. We can literally go to the past and have an actual conversation with beings in the past, whether they're humans or dinosaurs or aliens or anything. We can literally have a conversation. We can go far into the future. So we already have the ability to time travel using our consciousness. It's remarkable. It's so exciting. But I have looked on a couple of occasions specifically at time machine technology, and I believe it exists. I believe that it's been used, and that we've had visitors that have used time travel. And I have one of my big projects that I have been working on for a very long time, and it's still going to take me some time to do, is to actually write out all the schematics for such a time machine. I don't think we have the technology available yet on the planet or the material science to build this, but I've been working on it for a long time. That's one of the things that I teach as an advanced class, is what I call technology transfer. Now, my background's in the hard sciences, and I have a lot of experience in physics and digital forensics and all kinds of interesting things. I'm very technically minded. So I teach class on how you actually use mapping to literally build blueprints. You can look at future technologies. You can look at technologies that no one's even thought of yet. You can do architectural drawings. You can do pretty much describe any biological or systems process, mechanical process. It's a whole different kind of method of mapping or remote viewing, but it's very effective. And so I think that we're going to be able to solve some of these things, maybe even build a time machine of our own in the future.
You also recently remote viewed the 3i Atlas.
Yes.
That was also a wonderful session. It was like, for me, like message in the bottle type situation.
Yes.
But
yeah, it was a message in a bottle, 100%. So what I got that it is a comet-like astronomical object. I am not an astronomer, so I don't know like what the technical definition of a comet is and what astronomical objects would be considered a comet versus a different kind of a rock flying through space, but it is a comet-like object. It's a natural object. It's not a big, huge spaceship. At least I didn't get that it is. And I don't, and I know I've gotten some comments that, well, that's just because they're clouding your mind so that you see it as a comet. It's really a spaceship full of ETs, and nah, it's not. It's just a big old astronomical icy rock or what have you, flying through space, but it's billions upon billions upon billions of years old. And this thing has seen many, many, many star systems, gone through many different systems, just like it's going through our system right now. And many billions of years ago in its journey, it was going past an aging civilization. The civilization would be comparable to a civilization many, many millions of years more advanced than we are at the time. This was billions of years ago now, and the civilization is now gone. And they essentially treated the comet like our Voyager probe that our Earth scientists sent out, where we put our mathematical formulas and imagery depicting male and female and mathematical symbols and music and science. We encoded into Voyager and sent it out into space, hoping someday maybe somebody would find it. They did kind of the same thing here. They encoded, though, because they were so much more advanced than we are today. They encoded like the entire memory of their civilization and all of their science, all of their understanding, all of their spirituality. They encoded it into this little thing. I call it a thumb drive in my session because that would be like what I could compare it to, because I don't have the words to describe, to like label it, because it doesn't exist in our time and space right here, right now. So this thumb drive, they sent a probe out to the comet and they kind of drilled into it and deposited this thing, and it kind of broadcasts every now and then like a beacon, just sending out some information. It's very benign. It's just a history of the civilization. So it's a message in a bottle. Absolutely. And it was I loved doing the sessions on Three Eye Atlas. It was just extraordinarily beautiful to me. And to meet a civilization that I had never, ever seen before or even could conceive of it. Very different than us, or different than all the aliens people talk about here on the planet. People talk about seeing grays and reptilians and Pleiadians, and there's a roster everybody has talked about. But these guys were so different. They were really huge and they were fuzzy, and orange would be the closest color I could describe them as. And they had 5 appendages, and they were so different and so loving, and they had really evolved into being a deeply philosophical people. So that was fun.
Yeah, people go and watch these videos. They are really amazing. But this message was not specifically directed to us. It was just they grab a comment and they'll say, okay, let's just put our message in it, and whoever gets it, then gets it.
That's right. Yeah, nothing's going to happen when Three Eye Atlas leaves us. Nothing's going to happen. It's just a little message in there. And if our scientists are able to capture that message, then they will be all the richer. And I suspect that they've gotten some indication that there's something going on there. But it's just a message, and it's not a malevolent message. It's not like, okay, we're going to show up and and enslave you. Nah, nothing like that. It's just really a catalog of their history. A really beautiful catalog.
Yes. Okay, I have to ask this question because if I don't ask that, lots of people will be very angry.
That's okay.
You heard quite a lot on the internet nowadays that some people think there's some kind of a big event is going to happen in, some say 2026, 2027. And you also said a couple of times that around early 2000, you also remote view some kind of big event happening in 25 plus years.
Yes.
Is it the one which you recently, you recently posted a video, the biggest secret of our time or the earth? Is it connected? Are you saying that this, because if I understood, I just watched the video 2 hours ago. And what I understood that you said some kind of meeting took place between Eisenhower and some kind of aliens, and they decided a date in the future. Can you?
Yeah. I have to tell you the whole story because it's so interesting.
Please.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So back at TransDimensional Systems, back 25 years ago, John Vivanco and I did a big project, and we started by looking at disclosure, because back then, kind of like today, we thought, oh, disclosure's just around the corner. The president's going to come out and announce that there are UFOs, remote viewings now in the public. It's going to happen. Of course, what did we get in the sessions? We had 200 remote viewers look at this, and everybody was describing the same thing, but they were also saying that it was going to be in the future, like far in the future. It felt like far in the future. Like estimates on time were 25 to 30 years in the future, which would place us about right now. It's been about 25 years now. And we were getting this whole scenario that we started calling the big event. And we called it that for quite a long time. And so the big event was essentially the return of some ET species, and we also called it the flotilla because there would be multiple ships that would come in. And this was going to be why disclosure was going to happen. Disclosure was going to happen before the big event because the powers that be knew the big event was going to happen and they had to get the public up to speed. That's what we got years ago. And so now cut to today, and I'm looking at the biggest secret in the world. And what do I get? I get the big event, but I get a lot more information that's kind of surrounding that big event. I get literally the same kind of data, which is if you watch that session on my YouTube channel, I say even in it, I'm like, oh, it's the big event. And I didn't explain it because I wasn't thinking when I was mapping this that, oh, I'm going to put this on YouTube, so I better explain it for the public. I'm not thinking like that when I'm doing these things. It's just a practice. And then I've got like literally over 10,000 videos that I could put online. I just haven't had the time, but I'm going to start trying to put more on because I think it's interesting to watch the process, and my students are getting a lot out of watching the process at the very least. So in this biggest secret in the world session, I got that all of this starts back in the 1950s with President Eisenhower of the United States. And there is this whole mythology, and I've looked at this multiple times, and I believe it to be true, where he went out in a secret meeting with an ET species, and they made a treaty. They made a treaty in which the humans were given advanced technology that could be extraordinarily beneficial to the public. And in exchange, we were to promise not to use nuclear weapons, which had already been used in World War II to devastating effect, and that we would use this technology for humanity's good. Now, I don't believe that just the United States got into this agreement. I believe other countries were involved. So I don't think that the ETs said, oh, the US must be the place to make an agreement with the humans. I don't think that they think like that. I think they made agreements with other countries at the same time. Anyway, we did not stick to this agreement. Not only did we keep using nuclear weapons in terms of testing and building an arsenal, as did other countries, but we also did not use that technology for good. It stayed in secret, and it's been used by weapons contractors. It's been used for all kinds of research, secret research. It has not benefited humanity. If that technology had been used to benefit humanity, we would be in a very different position right now. So, but at the time of the treaty, and I've done multiple sessions on this, and I've given it out to others and students and things. They all get the same thing. At the time, the ETs involved said that they would be back, and they gave a specific date for their return. So the government and governments have known all of these 70 years when this return is. And that's what I think has prompted the modern disclosure movement, which wasn't in my session, but I believe this to be true, that's why in 2017, all of a sudden, Lou Elizondo comes out there and all these Chris Mellon and others, and they start really pushing disclosure through Congress. I think they're getting people ready because they know that this thing's going to happen. They're going to return at some point. And so anyway, so meanwhile, and I know that the biggest secret on earth is a complicated session, and I know people are looking at it and they're trying to put all the pieces together, but I just like putting the raw data out and letting people kind of figure out what it means to them. It's like I said earlier, you can't divorce yourself from the process. So you're looking at this experience through my understanding in my own eyes. And anyway, so meanwhile, our sun is going through a big solar cycle, and this is like a normal thing. The sun goes through a big solar cycle every so often. We're just kind of on the downside hump of solar maximum right now. And this is kind of the time when you might get big solar flares. We've had them a couple times this year where even people down like at my latitude, I live in New Mexico, and that's in the southern United States. And we never, ever, 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 ever see the aurora borealis. But
oh yes,
twice this year we did. I mean, it didn't look as glorious as it does up north, but we could still see that a little bit of color in the sky. It was incredible. And that's because these solar flares have ramped up. And at the same time, the Earth's magnetosphere has been weakening, which makes the solar flare effect stronger. There's a lot of science out there on it. And I recommend everybody go and look at what's happening with the sun and the Earth. We're also starting to go through a pole shift. This is normal. Every so often, the Earth goes through these cycles, and we are right smack at that moment in time when these kinds of Earth changes happen. So in the session, I get the Einstein meeting with the ETs. I mean, not Einstein, the Eisenhower meeting with the ETs, technology in exchange for, being good people and helping humanity. We broke that contract. ETs are going to come back at some point, at some date in the future. And I don't know exactly when that date is. I got in my session, like maybe up to 15 years from now, maybe sooner, maybe later. Hard to say, but sometime in the near future. And I don't think that the future is necessarily totally fixed. I think there's eddies of probability, but I do think this is going to happen. I think this is a fixed event. But anyway, so in the meantime, we are going through these Earth changes, and this technology could have been used to save everybody on the planet. But instead, we have the rich now building bunkers. And so I was getting these elements too in my session, that the rich know that this stuff is going to happen. These aliens are coming back. The Earth is going through major changes. So people with a lot of money, the 1%, so to speak, they're building these underground bunkers. That's why we hear all these stories in the news. And they're getting ready for all these changes, maybe even for the ET return. Who knows? But that's essentially what I got is the biggest secret in the world, that the powers that be know what's going to happen. The rest of us don't have a clue. And but there was also kind of an ultimate message there that you shouldn't worry about this stuff, that life goes on anyway, and you shouldn't worry, don't worry, be happy is kind of the message I was getting. And I believe that. I believe that. And I also believe that humanity survives because I have looked at humanity 50 years in the future, 200 years in the future, 1,000 years in the future, and we make it, and we become beautiful people. We go through some hard stuff, but we become incredible. And I can't wait for that to happen. I mean, I won't be alive anymore by then, but my descendants will be, and descendants of all the beautiful people on Earth today, and it'll be a lovely place to live by then. Maybe I'll be reincarnated and get to experience it.
Well, you never know.
Right.
but our own, if you watch the humanity, I mean, we had a kind of a dress rehearsal during the COVID time when the whole world was locked down.
Yes. That's a really great observation. Absolutely. I mean, look how we dealt with that. That was very hard, but we did all come together, right? And it was difficult. A lot of people died. It was a very scary and terrifying time, but yet we made it through. We made it through, and we're stronger somehow. We have better understanding about things. We are learning more about each other and about the planet around us.
I was thinking in the terms that perhaps it was like a dress rehearsal for this event to see, let's test, these militaries usually do these exercises.
Yes.
And see, but some of the reactions, for example, I remember clearly people were fighting over toilet papers.
Oh, I know. Well, the term plandemic, okay, I guess I'm on the plandemic, if I have to be honest. I do think that there was something artificial about the whole thing. And I have looked at it. I will not post those sessions because that is a political minefield. But yeah, I do think that there have been a number of different things like that have been done to test the population in certain kinds of ways. Absolutely. Yeah.
But have you ever considered the impact of such revelation on humanity? Because we are very, culturally and religiously conservatives in our beliefs and our, perception of the reality. Do you think that if this armada, let's say, of these space ships all of a sudden appear all over the world, I am not confidence that the humanity will, because an advanced civilization meeting primitives. The history.
Right.
What happened with the primitives?
Right. Yeah. Just look at what happened here in the United States. Well, our beautiful indigenous population, and then the white conquerors came in, and boom, smallpox, all kinds of devastation. It's just been, yeah. And so, well, I think that that's what this whole disclosure movement has been about. I think it's a very long-term process, and that they have mapped this out. At the Seoul conference, I believe it was Carl Nell who had given, this is one of the early Seoul conferences, he had given this presentation showing a disclosure timeline. And it went out to around the year 2030, which I thought was really interesting. But it kind of laid out how they were going to approach all of these different kinds of areas, from science to theology to medicine to whatever. And that it was going to be like a 10, 15-year, 20-year process to get the public ready to accept that this is real. And I think that that's actually what has to happen, because it's like you said, we are culturally diverse. We have many different religions that I think would be very resistant to the idea that we're not alone, or even to the presence of another kind of species on our planet, even though they're already been living here. I think that there are a number of people who would be extremely upset, and it would probably cause a lot of strife. But I think that that's what this modern disclosure movement is working toward, slowly. I think they're trying to get us all on board to at least understand that we're not alone, at the very least. But I also think that they have a planned narrative too, which doesn't thrill me. The whole national security narrative. These guys have been with us forever, and have they been hugely destructive? No, they have not. Yeah, have a few people had medical issues because they got too close to a craft? Yes. Have there been a few cases where people seem to have been killed by ETs or craft? Yes. But that's nowhere near the majority. The majority of encounters have been quiet, somewhat peaceful, and strange, to be sure, maybe complicated and unsettling. But they have the technology, certainly, and the ability to do whatever they want, but they haven't wiped us out yet. So I don't think national security is actually a concern.
And I also think that skills like remote viewing or remote influencing or psychokinesis, I think we humans have this unique talent. I don't know if it's this talent exists in all species, but at least in humans, I have seen at least or read that there are people who are really talented. They can literally move things with their thoughts.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I had I've done spoon bending, which is a form of telekinesis and things like that. And that's a lot harder to do than actually just remote viewing.
Yes.
Yeah, but I believe it. You practice it, you could be excellent at that too.
That could be our, ultimate weapon. if
right, that's right, exactly.
Maybe that's why these other civilizations do not mess with us. Okay, let them leave them alone.
Exactly.
Okay. Finally, I heard officially, U.S. government shut down these so-called psi experiments or remote viewing sessions in 1995 or something.
Right.
But once they have start doing something, they never stop. So do you think they're still doing it?
Oh yeah. You know why they stopped? They stopped because all of those original remote viewers in the military, they just reached retirement age and they were about to be let loose on the public. So they were leaving the military because they were retiring. And so they had to come up with a cover story. So they said, yeah, kind of worked, kind of didn't. We're shutting it down. Wasn't worth spending the money, but of course they're still doing it. And that's one of my passions, has actually been looking at all of these numbers. And there's a number of now secret remote viewing groups out there that are government or government adjacent, and defense contractors use them. Government has multiple ones, almost every branch of the government. It's actually quite fascinating. They're using a lot more technology these days. and it's given me ideas. It's why I monitor my brain waves. That's one of the things that I've talked about kind of extensively over the past year since I came back in the public field, is that I learned this actually from, about 10 years ago, doing some sessions on one of those secret military groups, and they were all monitoring their brain waves. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. So I looked into it and got some equipment, and I've been monitoring my brainwave since, and it's made me a better mapper for sure.
Yeah, I also heard that not only the science and technology, but exactly this, these brain scans. And
Yes.
for 10 or 12 years ago, I saw a report where a hospital, they were doing experiment to basically read your mind by looking the brain frequencies and different parts of the brain firing
Yes.
different times when you were thinking about something, and that.
That's
And they
right.
were almost accurate. This is like 15 years ago. Imagine that the military, they have a lot of money and
They're
resources.
Yeah. And they say that the military research is at least 50, if not 100 years ahead of the civilian sector. So imagine what they have. And even just in the past few years, like I use a Muse, which is a like it looks like a headband goes around your head and has like these nodes on the back of it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an EEG device. And they recently, over the past year, came out with this new app where you literally use your brain waves to move things on your screen. So you have your phone. In one of the games they have, it's like an eagle that's perched on a cliff above this big expanse of desert. And you literally use only your mind to make that eagle leap up and fly across the desert. And it's way harder than you'd realize. So this is a way to practice that kind of telekinesis, but it's the same kind of a thing. And they've got like games where you can move cubes around literally with your mind. So your brainwaves are being picked up by this device, transmitted through Bluetooth to the app, and they know what your brain is thinking just from your brainwaves, and you're able to move these objects on the screen. It's incredible.
Well, fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I have hundreds of different questions, but I know you are pretty busy, but I'm extremely thankful for your time, and that
The pleasure is mine.
I have learned once again so many new things from you. Thank you very much, Birdie.
Thank you,
where can
Ruben.
people
I'm
find
so glad to be here. Find me at a couple of places. My YouTube channel is called No Rivets, NORIVETS, and I have lots of live remote viewing TransDimensional Mapping sessions on there. And my website is norivets.com. And I have another website, my professional website, if you'd like to learn about my online classes and the research we're doing. It's transdimensionalmapping.com.
Well, there you go, folks. Once again, thank you for joining us. I hope you liked it. Birdie, once again, I hope to see you maybe some other time. If you have time, we can have, because I have, like I said, many questions.
Let's do it. Let's do it, Rustam. I would love that.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
Take
you.
care, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.